The Meta Quest Pro has been dubbed the enthusiast headset or the work headset. No matter which side you're on, we're going to talk about what really makes this stand out compared to its predecessors, but also some areas where it might fall short. So let's get into it. While I'd love to talk about how cool this thing looks from the outside, the real questions come from comfort and performance. And we're going to start by talking about the head strap itself. This is a drastic change from what we've seen in the past. And for a premium headset, it better have a premium head strap instead of the elastic stuff that we had gotten before. And boy, is this a big change. The forehead balancing act that comes on this now with the weight distribution in the back where the battery is at, this has been one of the big standouts for me coming from the predecessors. Even with the Elite head strap on the Quest 2, this has far more balance and it's noticeably absent the pressure on your cheeks because it stands away from your face. And this is something that you'll notice as soon as you put it on, is that it is so different. And without the light blockers on, it felt a little disorienting at first. I'm going to get into that a little bit more and why I actually do like that to some degree. But not having that pressure on your face and the weight distribution really made this feel like a premium product, and the comfort was taken up a notch. The other cool thing is it uses the cameras inside. So when you put the headset on, they actually have a fit guide that will tell you whether you should move it up or down on your face, whether you should tilt it left or right. It will help you with the IPD, which is much more dynamic instead of having notches. So everything about the comfort side of things has taken a massive leap forward. And I think we expected that when we talk about the price tag on this. So as far as comfort goes, this has definitely been a major step up, but let's move our attention towards the inside. Of course, the real important part is the lenses. Now we're going from Fresnel to Pancake lenses, and we're not going to get into the technical aspects, but let's talk about the benefits and what that means for the Quest Pro, and then some of the differences that you'll notice. And right away, those God rays that you're used to, if you've put on those, you know, those light beams that come off text, those are a thing of the past, probably one of the most noticeable things as soon as you put on the headset, which means watching movies and doing other tasks that generally has that light stretch are no more. That is a drastic improvement that I think most people are going to love. You couple that with some clarity. Now the clarity, because the Fresnel lenses had that haze effect on the outside, they were fixed foveated. So the middle of the lens was focused, the outside was not, which means you normally had to move your head around so that you could actually focus on things, where the Pancake lenses allow you to just look around. Now you'll still find yourself moving your head to kind of focus on different things naturally, but there is a drastic change in just looking around and being able to see what you're trying to see without being forced to move your head. This is a really, really cool change that I think a lot of people are going to like when you're in that enthusiast realm. For most people, you're so used to just looking around with your head, but getting rid of the God rays and that foveated effect of the haze on the outside, getting rid of that fixed foveated part is really nice and really enjoyable. Moving deeper into the performance area, of course, is the minute I got into the headset and the menu, I noticed the colors were much richer. Even the menu, I knew we were in for something good because that was the first thing that stood out. The colors popped more with these new lenses. And to me, that's really cool. But I wanted to see what that looked like in an actual use case scenario in games and movies and things like that. And while it did stand out in certain areas, there were other areas where it didn't stand out as much, where the colors, there wasn't that big of a drastic effect where I said, oh, this is very different. I tried PC VR games, I tried Beat Saber games, I tried Dart games, which we're going to get into the blacks here in just a second. And I really looked into these and I put them back and forth, trying to see if there was a major difference, like going from like a standard definition to HD. We all remember what that effect was like. You didn't have that same effect here. There were areas where it was really noticeable, but if you're looking for that just eye-popping change for everything, that's not exactly what this is going to do. I think that newer gen games and things like that can really up the contrast, up the clarity of things. You're going to notice it a lot more. Whereas on some of the older games, there's really not that many improvements that you're going to get. Just a little bit richer colors if you're looking hard enough. And of course, one of the things they touted at Connect was the contrast and how much deeper and darker the blacks would be in key areas over its predecessors. And in certain areas, this was really noticeable that the black colors, that contrast was much deeper. You knew that you felt that immersion a lot more instead of being more washed out or that gray type. But there were other circumstances where if I'm in Beat Saber, I even went to one of the darkest places I could with these Space Explorers videos, and I didn't notice there was a huge change in certain areas. And I know we're talking about use case scenarios, So I went over a wide variety of games, and there were areas where it was really noticeable. And then there were other areas where I probably would have to sit there and focus for a very long period of time just to notice the difference. I'm not saying it's not there. I'm just saying that, again, this is a use case scenario. And I caution people, if they think that it's just going to be a miracle solution for everything and everything's going to look better in every scenario, that's not really going to be the case. But the areas that you do notice it, it really does stand out. Thus, the enthusiast side of things, these are the things that you'll notice, whereas the regular person might not notice it as much. Also, text and clarity of reading text is really nice. That thing comes off really good. And then there's one other small thing, because a lot of people are saying the screen door effect is gone. In the home world, it's a light background, which is normally easier to see the screen door in those areas. It's not completely gone. As much as I wish that it was, it's not completely, but you actually have to be looking for it. And that's something that you're looking for. You're probably just being picky. Is it an improvement? Sure. Have we come a long way? Absolutely. Is it completely gone? Nope. Now, we have lenses that come towards us, but we also have lenses that go outside in the way of camera lenses so that we can actually see the world around us. Let's talk about pass-through and the color pass-through, because the pass-through still is going to be a grainy look. However, we now see it in color. Now, there are some really cool things with this, especially when you couple it with the design, but let's focus on the things that matter. And that is that you are still going to get a warp effect. You are still going to have that grainy effect. And there was some talk about how there is supposed to be a firmware update coming soon where things are clear, but the FPS is going to feel lower. We'll see what they do with this and how much this can produce. But when you couple that with the design, one really interesting thing that I noticed is by not having the light blockers on, you actually feel more connected with your world without feeling completely immersed. And this is actually a really nice scenario for me to just get up, walk into the other room, make a cup of coffee, leave a browser up, and I ended up making my entire livable area a play space so that no matter where I went, I could recenter, bring everything up. So I actually found myself standing in the kitchen, making a cup of coffee while watching a video in my screen in my headset, and all I had to do was look over. This felt like I was literally living in the future. Now, the technology is there. It's just not really refined, and I do think there's some really cool things that are going to come from this in the future when we get more mixed reality, and this was the first time that I said, wow, this is maybe worth it for me, because the color pass-through made me feel like I was still in the world, and the design actually helped. This is one area where I'm not talking about work. I'm just talking about having that mixed reality effect. So I was actually a big fan of that, but there are some areas where, depending on lighting, this can really struggle. And the graininess, of course, is going to be there, but it was nice to have that glimpse into the future no matter what. And speaking of mixed reality, there were a host of updates and new games and apps that came out on day number 1 that made use of mixed reality. And I know some of these have been around in the app lab, but using it with the color pass-through, it really did feel like that leap forward in technology and things that we're seeing. And I know that they're not the first to do it, especially with AR being around. But this really does kind of give you a glimpse into what Meta is trying to do in the long run, and being able to stay connected with the color pass through. There's some pretty revolutionary things going on here. I just think we're very early in the process to say that this is the investment that's really going to change everything. Let's focus on a couple of other key things. And one small thing I want to talk about is the audio. I know most people are going to use headphones or Bluetooth earbuds or something like that. The audio on this actually stood out to me as being very good. I actually forgot that I wasn't wearing headphones. I want to give a credit to the audio on this, but let's talk about a couple of other things that are really going to matter. And one of those is battery. Now, the first thing I did was I installed everything. I drained the battery down to 0, and then I wanted to see how long it took to charge. It took me about an hour and 45 minutes for a full charge. I timed this from beginning to end. So right around the 2-hour mark is where you can expect that. But more importantly, how long does it last? Well, that's also around the 2-hour mark. I hit around 2 hours and 15 minutes from 100% all the way down to 0, trying different things using pass-through. Now, 2 features I was not using during that was eye tracking and face tracking, which is probably going to eat up a little bit more power consumption. I did have hand tracking on, but I didn't use it all the time. So around that 2 hour and 30 minute mark seems where the battery life is going to be, which leads me to my next point. If you have the Quest 2, you know that if you're trying to charge and so you forgot to charge it, you're down to 10%, you plug a cable in, eventually that battery is going to die and you're going to not be able to play anymore. But with the Quest Pro, one thing I noticed is that you can actually positively charge in a very quick fashion while you're using it. That was a nice feature that I didn't expect. But I plugged it in, and within 10 minutes, I already had 6 or 7% charge. So you can do the math on how well that goes, but that is a very nice change for those that are wanting to stay in the moment and in immerse. The only thing that I wish they would have done, and I know this isn't just due to the battery, but with the battery in the back, the charging port is still on the front. And I know it has to do with data transfer and other things, but it would have been really nice had they put that charger, that connection in the back where the battery is. I wish that was a thing, because having that on the side of my face means that I need to have my cable on that side, or it's going to be wrapped around me, which is exactly what I experienced when I used this. One thing we haven't touched on yet was the controllers. We know the controllers are basically independent to where they don't have to be tracked by the cameras on the headset, and they stand alone as their own computer, as Meta would say. And these have a very premium feel. These are really, really well done. I know there were battery concerns on these. I used them all day. I never had an issue. The only problem I have is that they don't have a swappable battery. So if you forget to charge them, you might be in trouble, because it only comes with one cord and it's not very long and it's not going to be very convenient to charge it. So just make sure you throw those on the charging dock. You do get a very long charge out of these. I just wish there was a different solution. I understand why they did it, but the batteries do have that premium feel. I actually found myself missing that halo part, because normally I would hold one and then I'd carry one by the halo in the other while I used my other hand, or I would put them down upside down. This is a very noticeable change if you're coming from the Quest controllers, that those no longer exist, and it is a different feel, but they are really neat and they are really well done. And yes, you can put them behind your back and you can do all kinds of things with them and they'll still communicate, which is really cool and a nice touch for these. If you get them for your Quest 2, you won't be disappointed, but they are going to be a premium product. Does the Quest Pro really want to make you upgrade from the Quest 2? Probably not, unless you do have that enthusiast in you, or you just really like working in VR. I think that's who this is going to be made for. And everybody else, I really encourage you to just wait for the Quest 3 or stick with the Quest 2. You're not going to be disappointed. And there's not going to be anything you're really missing out on other than some really cool mixed reality technology that's there. It's just not refined enough for most people to invest in that, and that's okay. But there is some really cool things in the Quest Pro and some really nice upgrades, and I'll let you decide on whether the Quest Pro is right for you. I'm also going to be covering more about the Quest Pro and VR, so make sure and subscribe for that, or check out the video on the screen to go more in depth. I'll see you in the next video.